1. During the summer of 2008, I stayed with an aunt and uncle for a few months because I wasn't getting along with my parents. Another story for another day. While staying there, I worked overnight at a local convenience store. During the day, I was mostly alone while my aunt and uncle worked. At this point in my life, I had not experienced anything paranormal and did not believe in ghosts and spirits or the afterlife. I was 19 and knew everything. However, as soon as I moved in, I was faced with experiences that changed my perspective forever. The first one, I was alone. It was about 9 a.m. and I had just finished my shift, and I was preparing to wind down and get ready for bed. I was alone as usual. Both my aunt and uncle were working, so I had the house to myself. I was sitting downstairs in the living room eating. Out of seemingly nowhere, I heard what sounded like an adult running through the kitchen, which paralleled the living room and was completely out of view to me. A bang, and then footsteps went into the den that connected to the kitchen. I bolted up and went to the kitchen to investigate the sound. There was a coffee pot on the floor. That must have been the bang I heard when it hit the floor. I headed towards the den to see who was in there, however it was empty. There was no way for anyone to have been in the den and me not seen them. I shrugged it off and figured I was tired and went to bed. A few weeks later, my alarm woke me up at 9 a.m. for work. I groggily got up and headed towards the bathroom that was directly across my room. However, the door was shut. I could see the light shining from under the door, and I heard the distinct sound of someone sweeping the floor. Swish, swish, swish. It sounded like an old-fashioned straw broom. I found this very odd, considering no one besides myself used that bathroom, and couldn't think of why anyone would be sweeping at 9 p.m. But I patiently waited some time for whoever was in there to finish up. After a few minutes, I couldn't wait any longer because I had to start getting ready for work. I approached the bathroom door. I could still hear the sweeping, and gently knocked and asked if they were almost done. But to my surprise, the sound abruptly stopped. I opened up the door and no one was there. I brushed this experience off as well and pushed it to the back of my mind. This last experience is the reason I ended up moving out. It was too terrifying to ignore what I knew was happening in that house. My sister stopped by during the day to see me, and her and I were in the back room, hanging out and chatting. The door to the hallway was closed. My aunt and uncle were working, so her and I were the only two people who were home. As we gabbed away, we suddenly heard what sounded like 1920s music coming from downstairs. We froze and fell silent. The music grew louder and louder until it sounded like it was coming from every corner in the house. The music sounded like it was being played from a record player. My sister and I just stared at one another, too terrified to speak. Then we heard what sounded like a party erupting from downstairs. It sounded like 30 or more people were downstairs. Sounds of laughing, talking, and chinaware clinking filled the house. Then what we heard next terrified me. Loud, heavy footsteps started making their way upstairs, where my sister and I were. Boom, boom, boom. It was slow and purposeful. The party sounds and music had reached a deafening level, but I could still hear those heavy footsteps above all the other sounds. Eventually I heard the footsteps make it to the second floor. Then they slowly started stomping towards the closed door my sister and I sat behind. When the footsteps reached our door, I leapt up and yanked the door open. When I did, all the noise in the house stopped. The party, the music, the stomping. There was no one behind the door. The hallway was empty and the house was dead silent again. My sister and I wasted no time racing out of the house and staying outside until our aunt and uncle came home. They didn't believe our story, and I moved out shortly afterwards and never stepped foot in that house again. 2. So me and my family bought our house back in 2000. We were the first to live there and moved in after the house was built. The only explanations we have is that the clothing these ghosts wear are like early 1900, late 1800, and you'll know why. The first ghost made herself known when I was somewhere between 12 and 14. I always had trouble sleeping at night, and couldn't walk around my house at night as I felt like someone was always watching. But I always just thought that was irrational kid thinking. Or so I thought. One night, I was laying on my bed. Not to sleep, but on top of my comforter and all. I was just staring at my bedroom door into the hallway. The hallway light and the bedroom light was on, and I think I also had the main entrance light on. Think of a chandelier where the entrance, you can see the stairs right away, and see a bit upstairs as well. I had no music or anything playing, when I hear a little girl's laugh just as the lights turn on and my door closes shut. I freaked out and started screaming when my mom came out of her room on the first floor, thinking I was playing with the lights. She didn't believe my explanation that night, but I'll come back to this. The second ghost made himself known in a more creepy way. One night when I was 15 or maybe 16, I woke up at exactly 3:14. I felt something tap on my shoulder, and as I turned to see what it was, a man stood next to my bed. He appeared to be in his late 40s, early 50s, judging from his white hair and white mustache and beard, in what I could only describe as a Civil War uniform for the Confederacy. Only thing was his skin was very pale and his eyes had no pupils. I wanted to scream, but he only moved his finger over his lips to signify be quiet. Shh. I lay in my bed, frozen with fear, as he walked out of my room and closing the door quietly. From that night I kept hearing him march in my upstairs hallway. Now, being I was the only one that could account these spirits, I was always told I was crazy. Until my brother and mom both told me they noticed the girl. She never did anything harmful, except she loves to play with us by hiding things somewhere. We know we didn't leave them. As well as returning them to where they were originally, after we look everywhere. Main things are keys, remotes, and small objects like nail polish or makeup. It's gone to the point where if we lose something, and we know it's not where we left it, we just say, "Little girl, we need this back," or "Little girl, we're in a rush and can't play." She normally puts it back in its place a bit quicker. The older man was seen by my grandfather and my mom as well. My grandfather just saw him walk in the front door and directly to my parents' room. My mom would see him at night, but all he does is tip his hat to her and walks away. One night, where she was crying a lot, I believe it was over losing her grandparents or her brother, he sat next to her and put his hand on her shoulder. She said he felt very cold, but she felt safe. Not sure if this means anything, but I thought it would be cool to share this with you all. 3. This started as a joke, but it doesn't feel like one anymore. Things become more than just a coincidence since last year. I think it started when I was a kid. I'd moved to many cities and schools during my childhood because our family wasn't able to pay rent. And it was the year I moved away from my parents for a year because they weren't able to feed me. I was only 11 years old. As usual, I was greeted with a new environment, and now I had to live with people I didn't know. As a kid, loneliness hit me like a truck, and I started talking alone. I talked with the plants around me, I talked with the stars, the moon, and many other things. Years passed, and during that time, I became a teen and gained more knowledge about religion. I was a Buddhist. I had many questions, and faced with people who used religion for their own benefit, I hated it, and I created my own god as a joke. I would create my own rules that I need to follow, and my god was a being that existed only for me, who granted my wishes. I didn't think it would come true. Every time I was in a struggle, I would wish to my god. Most of those wishes came true. When my wishes didn't come true, I would get something even better than my wish in return. I was a teen, so I only wished for silly things. I was happy that time, and didn't think too much of it, but more than a coincidence. In later years, I would start to guess about the future. For example, I would guess something that could happen in the future and ask my God, using something like a spin wheel where you can put random text and get random results. I would name 2 possible events as A and B. I'd color the wheel with black and white. I would ask if event A would happen. The result would be black. 3 times in a row. If I got black 3 in a row, then there was a high chance that event A would happen in the future, which most of my results did. As usual, I thought it was all a joke and laughed it off. I continued doing those again and again. 2 years ago, I became addicted to gacha and gambling my luck. I would wish to my God again and again. I never stopped. My wishes didn't come true as time moved on. I was so desperate and decided if my God wouldn't grant my wishes, then I would make a deal with the devils, which I also did as a joke. I made as if there was a devil or something near me. I would offer something that I possess, like body parts or lifespan, in exchange for my wishes to be granted. My wishes came true. I would do wishes for my friends, and those came true also. When my friends asked me, I told them about the God I created, and my wishes were granted. We tested out many things in many ways to see if it was just a coincidence for weeks. Our results surprised us with a rating of 8 out of 10, which became true. I didn't know how to feel at first, but my friend later asked me if I was sure that's a God. It sent a chill down my spine, and I was scared. I stopped making the wishes for more than a year, and was about to forget, but yesterday an event reminded me of it. I was grabbing a drink and thinking about the little money I was left with for the whole month. I wished to win a free drink from a lucky can or the label on the drink, and I won a free drink. But it didn't end there. When I went to exchange for a free drink, and then with that, I won another again. I won 12 consecutive times, which made me remember what happened in the past. My past experiences led me to think that this is not just a lucky day or a coincidence. I get chills every time I think about that question my friend asked. Are you sure that's a God? Four. About 6 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were sitting on the couch in our new apartment that we had just moved into. We had the TV on, and it was around 1:30 to 2:15 a.m. Except for the TV, all the lights were out in the room, and the blinds we have on the windows were essentially blackout blinds, meaning no light enters from outside when they are closed. Randomly, a flash of light was so bright, it illuminated the entire room with a blinding white light that was so bright it's hard to explain. I'm not even sure how to explain it, actually. The light almost made everything glow as if it were a black light or something. Honestly, I can't put it into words. When it happened, time sort of slowed down, and this rush of terror flooded over me in a wave. I know this happened in less than a second, but it felt much longer. I remember that it moved from the source almost like a wave across the room, not how a light should operate. I remember, for whatever reason, my first instinct was to look directly at our wall clock to make sure there wasn't any missing time. Right in the middle of the experience, that was my instinct. That is to say, in a millisecond, my only thought was to make sure time wasn't missing, like you hear during alien abduction stories. The only thing that compares to the brightness is one of those strobe lights that go off on a fire alarm, but this was 100 times brighter, and our apartment, and the entire apartment building as a whole, does not have such strobe lights. Again, in the room, there is absolutely no light source this could have came from. Now, my girlfriend had a different vantage point, and she was on the couch facing a different angle to me. She faces the light source. She described it as looking like one of those comic book characters' thought bubbles in the middle of the room. But the kind of thought bubbles that have those jagged edges. Not the smooth ones, if that makes sense. To this day, she refuses to even talk about it, because it has messed up her fundamental worldview. I totally understand where she's coming from. I used to be the biggest skeptic, Mr. Science atheist there ever was, and I, for my entire life, would laugh at the thought of the paranormal or UFOs. Until 2018, I saw a UFO, and not just a flicker in the sky. I saw and watched this UFO do things that are not really talked about when it comes to UFOs, at least not to my knowledge at the time of seeing it. I totally denied the experience to myself for a few years because if I accepted it as happening, then that fact would absolutely shake me to my very core, my entire existential worldview on everything. I thought to myself, if I saw that and it was true, that it opened the door to endless possibilities. Everything from the boogeyman to the very existence of God, but I digress. Anyway, back to the bright light. I have no idea how to explain, and I can't really find anything on Google. Has anyone else had a similar experience? Thank you in advance. 5. It's me again, your friendly, weird chaos goblin, with another story to tell. In a past glitch in the Matrix, no, they're not done, they'll be coming back, probably a year back, I mentioned how I predicted things on and off randomly. Today I'm here with more stories, but I think this might lean more towards supernatural, according to a few people that I have asked. In the past few months, I've been able to basically get a read of what people were thinking without the intent of doing so. I think this fact is important, and have been able to just read their mind with the examples below. Before we get started, I want to point out that I have spoken with a couple of people, and they do think I have some capacity to be empathic, sensitive, and a grounder based on the feedback I have given them in private conversations. If anyone has thoughts, feel free to leave in the comments. Friend 1. Charles and I were playing a game called Phasmophobia, where you try to figure out the ghost and not die in the process. The conversation is word for word from a video I recorded of the stream in question. Wait, you already got the bone? What's that? Did you? No? Oh, I thought you said you did, never mind. No, I thought it, then I realized it wasn't the bone, and I never said anything about it. Shagar, stop using your telepathy, for fuck's sake. I could have sworn you said you found the bone. No, I didn't. I legit thought I saw it for a second. Then I thought, oh, look, the bone. And I didn't say anything. Sorry. Don't let anyone else find out about your secret powers. Friend 2, Hank. This was one night I was chatting with him, and he mentioned he was looking for something. During this point, I saw in my mind's eye the Google Chrome logo, and asked if that is what he was using. Sure enough, he confirmed that he indeed was. You could probably explain this with something easily guessed, since it's one of the main browsers used, but I don't really think that's the case. Friend 3, Jill. This night it was just me and her in voice chat, and we were talking. It eventually got to the point that her responses were delayed, like it was some kind of old-fashioned interview you see on the news when there's a delay for transmission. She eventually said, "Sorry, I was distracted." I then said without context, "That's okay, you were just reading." And bear in mind, I was not privy to this knowledge of how Jill acts when slow to respond in conversation. After this, she gets a bit weirded out, and then I go into an explanation of her being weird and why she is. The odd part is, I more or less got the main points in what she was thinking in this. I'll save on the dialogue since it was a bit ago. Lastly, I would like to get to my partner, Hufflepuff226. This one is quite a doozy of a story. I will try to keep it itemized. The first thing you should know is we both agree about there being spiritual things out in the world, and the like that can't be explained. They also do think I have some kind of innate ability, as you will hear below. We started dating back in July, and since then I have been able to predict and read what Ash-Lee has not only been doing, but even thinking about without a video prompt. You could probably explain most of these away, but I'm sure you'll agree some of these will be harder to do so. 1. I am not trained in psychology in any way, shape, or form. Since Ash-Lee has moved out on their own, they have had some panic attacks and bad dreams for reasons I will not cover, for it is not mine to share or my place to make this decision. Once they get any semblance of their senses back, their reaction is to simply call me. Every time they have, I have managed to successfully calm them within a matter of minutes, give or take. I have also managed to do this with another friend, and when I ask if this is an ability of a grounder, they both strongly believe this is the case. 2. We were voice chatting one night without webcam. I need to point out, I cannot hear if they are typing on their phone, and conversation is moving normally without really a pause at all. I asked, "Are you thinking about brownies?" They confirmed that was what they were doing. About 20 minutes later, I then asked if they were Googling something. They again responded yes. The weird part is, this is with the brownies, they just hit enter on a Google search for recipes to brownies. The Google one, they were actively unlocking on their phone with the intent of Googling something. I ended up freaking them out so much that this caused them to forget what they were searching for. 3. Numerous times I've been able to explain what and why they were thinking what they were. I should also point out that Ash-Lee in this case was having difficulty verbalizing the feelings they were wanting to share in a way that made sense. 4. I was brushing my teeth one day, getting ready for work, and had Ash-Lee on a video chat. They gave a quick sad expression. Not only did I notice, but I can't explain this one, it's just like I knew exactly what they were thinking, and asked if they thought I would just suddenly stop loving them. They confirmed it, looking a bit sad. I should point out here that both of us have had really bad relationships, and theirs usually follows a pattern, this being one of them. I comforted them, reassuring them that this wouldn't be the case, and was able to cheer them up. 5. Another night, getting ready for work. They had some alcohol before bed, and I blurted out, "Why am I so amazing? I don't know." I then saw them stop, pause, and then further explain they were not sure if they thought it or said it. I confirmed they didn't say that, and it came out that they literally thought this just seconds before I said it. 6. This one requires a bit of context first. A day for my partner and I, who are currently long distance, goes like this. I finish work and call them at their wake-up time. We talk till they have to go to work or I fall asleep. If it's their day off, then till I fall asleep. They carry out their day as needed till they call to wake me up, at which point I stream, and then call them after and talk to them till their bedtime and I'm at work. I sometimes end up waking up and apologize for falling asleep, to find out they already hung up. You could probably explain this part as force of habit, but I don't think so. I fell asleep this day they had to work. It was 30 minutes into their shift that I just suddenly woke up and started ejaculating. "You're late for work! Wake up! You're late for work! You need to wake up!" With the genuine concern and belief this happened. I then realized, as usual, that they were not on the other end and hung up and go back to sleep. Later that night, after we started talking, I recounted my side. This, surprisingly, to me, shocked Ash-Lee. When I asked why, they told me more or less, but not an exact quote. Work systems were down for an hour. At around that time, I was at my desk falling asleep. I then got up around the time you said, to get a drink and wake myself up. While these are my personal experiences, I remember I have sent this to Ash-Lee to include their details, which they have done a better job at. The following are Ash-Lee's experiences, from their perspective. 21st of October. I was searching for brownie recipes. Shagar asked me, "Are you thinking of brownies?" I had not mentioned brownies in over an hour at that point. Then an hour later I went to open Google and he asked if I was Googling anything. 29th of October. I was thinking about how I could really go for a cookie and he asked, "Are you thinking about cookies?" 30th of October. I was feeling insecure about everything I have to do to accommodate my chronic illnesses, and was afraid Shagar would be upset or scared off by how much I have to do to stay alive. I was trying to keep my mind off of it when he asked, "Are you afraid that I won't love you anymore when you get here?" Which is essentially what I was scared of but didn't want to say aloud. Of course, I started crying and we talked it out. 7th of November. I'm making a grocery delivery order. I'm picking out which candy I wanted to munch on and asked Shagar while looking at the options, jelly beans or dots. He says jelly beans followed by the Starburst jelly beans are delicious. right as I'm staring at the Starburst jelly beans to order with my groceries. We've never talked about jelly beans before. 8th of November. I purchased Christmas presents, and in the presents I ordered a positive pickle. I thought it would be funny since Shagar hates pickles. 2 days later, he sent me a picture of a positive pickle and said, "This is something I can see you owning." I couldn't even tell him he had a psychic episode without potentially revealing what the present is, and it's killing me not saying anything. 11th of November. Not as much of a psychic episode, but as soon as he picked up one of the packages for the Christmas presents, he immediately knew it was a shirt. There weren't any descriptions on the outside, and he said he could tell by the feeling of the package. Then, later that night, after I had had a bit of alcohol, I was on a Skype call with Shagar. I was wondering how I got so lucky when he asked, "How did you get so lucky?" "I don't know." And at first I assumed I had said it out loud, but after a few minutes, I realized I hadn't said it, just thought it, and he knew what I was thinking. 13th of November. Shagar woke up after I was supposed to be at work for 30 minutes, and thought I had fallen asleep during our morning call, so he started telling me to wake up because I was late for work. At that same time, my system was down, so I was dozing off around the same time he was saying to wake up, because I was late. It was about that time that I got up to get myself some coffee to stay awake while I waited. Not sure if it's psychic or pure coincidence. 20th of November. I had a dream a few days ago about my illnesses progressing to the stage where I needed a wheelchair and assistance to survive. Shagar asked that day if I was all right, but at that moment I didn't want to talk it out, so I said I would be fine. He didn't question any further. Today we were both looking at videos while talking over the phone when he said out of nowhere, "Honey, look at me." I switched over to the video call and he said, "You're not a burden." Again, I started crying, and we talked about the dream and why it was upsetting me so much. 25th of November. I have started to lose my voice. Twice I thought something, and he responded to my thoughts. First I saw a pic that I thought Shagar would like, and he said, "Did you say my name or think it?" And I said I didn't say anything. He thought he heard me verbally say his name, then I saw a video that was sappy and made me think of how much I cared about him. And he said, "I love you too." Again I said I literally didn't say anything, just thought it, and he swears he heard it verbally. 26th of November. Continued from last night. In the morning, while on call and watching TikToks, I saw a TikTok that was about trauma and why someone wouldn't feel worth it in the relationship. I sent it to him, but 2 seconds later he said, "You're worth it." I asked if he saw the video I sent. He says, "What video?" "You freaking out again." Also, with all these videos, we can't hear what is playing on each other's phone on call, so there isn't a way he could hear the videos. And the videos were only text with a song over the video. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories, episode 359. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. And I think you'll all join me in wishing a hearty congratulations to our friends Ash-Lee and Shagar on their engagement. And may it lead to many happy and fortuitous years to come, with an army of pets in tow. Alrighty, no other business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... Cake is gone. There was a cake-pocalypse, and all the recipes, all the utensils for making cakes, they've all disappeared, and you can't have any ever again. So what are you having in place of it? Personally, I'd go with a nice apple crumble, or maybe a cheesecake, which I don't consider an actual cake. There is also jammed roly-poly, which is a dessert I'm fond of. I like to warm it up and then have it with cold custard, because that's how it kind of works for me. Cold custard with warm desserts, and warm custard with cold desserts. It kind of works well for me, I find. But what do you think? Leave an answer in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.